No. Please.
Colin, he can carry on.
Join us.
First of all, your name is
Shabir.
Shabir, Colin.
Colin, nice
Shabir,
meeting you, sir.
God bless you. Shabir,
Likewise.
can I just say this first? I'm beginning to realise that I need to avoid falling into the trap that lots of conversations have, where I can already tell that your spirit isn't one where you bring mockery in. Basically, a friendly, intelligent, respectful conversation means we can go into the deep places without, I can imagine you telling, I shouldn't be telling you because you're not one of those kind of people, and please God I won't be one either. You know, where people get detonated and then the pride comes up, and I think the park in the last 6 months
has tended to go downward.
Exactly.
Can
I just say this? It's very important. I was here early this morning, and I was reading the passage in the Bible which says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Loving your neighbour is the law and the prophets." And I thought, when I first came here, I had a conversation with Muhammad Tawid and Abdul Hamid.
All right.
Okay. Now, people would have seen during the year them in a different persona to the one I had. It was the most calm and respectful and progressing conversation. I could have talked to them all day. It was wonderful. But the reason it was so was because I had no preconceived notions of them or history. In the beginning I said, look, I want to respect your religion because this is really important to you, and if I stray into areas, just build, So once we set that down, we could get on, as opposed to where people come with straight, you can tell the spirit, and the conversation then becomes possession of the conversation for as long as you can, and the ruder you are, you hold on to the conversation the longest until someone gets bored and they go, Harry's run, and I say, no, we don't want that.
Very childish.
So
Very childish. So thankfully, Colin, as soon as that starts appearing, I put a stop to it and I said, thank you very much, no problem. Look, I'm not here to win brownie points. I'm here to learn and hopefully say things that some people will benefit from.
I feel like giving a big sigh then going, I can relax. Listen, I'm not going to set any traps. There's going to be none of those kind of things. Relax and speak as you find. And if you've got a point you may say, I'd like to finish, take as long as you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, Colin, as you say, we actually travel quite a distance.
Where do you come from, if you don't
Blackburn in Lancashire.
You don't?
Yes, we do. So we've had a 6-hour drive already, 5-hour drive already.
God bless you and reward you for the sacrifice of your family as well, mate.
Absolutely.
You got children? Have you got
yes,
family?
3.
What have you got?
3 children.
Yeah.
Two girls and 1 boy.
Yeah. What ages?
19, 14 and coming to 9.
Okay, yeah. I've got 5 daughters from 21 down to 9.
Really?
So,
that's good, so you know.
No, I know. This is why I like coming here. No, I mustn't say that.
A form of escapism.
Yeah.
No. So whenever I do come, I'm always telling the brother, I said, look, we want to have conversation with people who are reasonable. Sure. What I do not want to do is engage in conversations where it is all about one-upmanship and saying things that are provocative when there isn't a need to.
Did you ever fall into that trap? Because when I came, I didn't initially, but I could feel in the last few months leaning towards that same persona that I didn't want.
Yes.
Because when you're hurt, you resent it, then you feel angry, and then you feel hateful, and then you feel aggressive. And I thought, hang on, that cycle means that certain people you need to say, well, if you like that kind of conversation, God bless you, you go and have that with another one like yourself. But I'm glad I found you anyway.
No, you're absolutely right. You know what, thankfully, for the time that we have been coming here, where I have potentially seen a situation which may go downward, I don't even start the conversation.
All right.
Look, twice in the past 2 visits, a Christian sister had come to discuss with me, and I flatly refused. And I was accused.
You knew the format.
Absolutely. Sorry, brother. And I was accused of running away. I'm not bothered. So what? Yes? You want to have a civil conversation? I'm more for it.
Yes?
I'm
so pleased that the brother came over and said, did you want to have a chat? Because,
well, that's good. So I can assure you, Colin, you are not going to hear anything of that kind from me. Thank you. At the end of the day, I do know that the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know.
For sure.
And it's all a learning process. Like I said, if I say things that may be of benefit, all the better.
For sure.
As
you say, this old adage, it's not what you say, it's the way that you say it, is so true as far as allowing your mind to try and listen, as opposed to wait till you finish so I can tell you what I'm saying. So I'm not even listening to you. So maybe it would be a good idea just to start the discussion off. Maybe if I tell you why I believe some of the things that I do.
No problem.
Because I was very much drawn to, and it's only something I've recently learned, is there's exegesis and eisegesis.
Yes.
Exegesis, as you know, is where you examine a verse in relation to the totality of the evidence that's around it, taking into account the earliest hearing, the culture, etc., etc. And eisegesis is where I tell you what it means based on my own interpretation, with my own bias attached to it. So one of my daughters, and maybe I tried to explain the theology too advanced without getting to the basics. And she asked me a very foundational question about why do you believe what you believe? And I said, well, I believe there was a man called Jesus. And this is where I'd be interested to see how, I read a book once and it said, let's start along the road of indisputable facts and see how far we can go. And then when we disagree, maybe we could examine that portion. So I believe in Jesus. I believe that Jesus came with a message. I believe he preached this message. I believe he had followers and companions who heard that message. I believe that when Jesus died, those followers and companions preached that message by word of mouth, proclaimed the message. And I believe that later on, they recorded it in writing, the message of the gospel and the events and happenings of Jesus' life. I also believe, on the evidence that I've discovered, that I've researched, that written testimony was canonized over 100 or 200 year process, and finally around the year 400 it was fixed, the index was closed as to what books they would be. So I remember when I was trying to discover faith, because I won't give you a testimony, but I used to be seriously into drugs and alcohol, and I wanted to escape.
Right,
and this is why I read something about the Muslim, the nighttime prayers. Very, very important for anybody who's listening. 3 o'clock in the morning, the devil can be very close, but that's the time you get closer to God as well. That I had an experience where God offered me the chance to change. And it was, I didn't know the Lord, I didn't even know God, I was a completely lost person. And the route after that has led me to where I am now.
Okay.
So I thought to myself, if I believed those things I went through, I went into a Bible shop and I said, could I have a Bible? And they go, which one? And this can be a very confusing one. You go into a Christian bookshop and there are Bibles absolutely. And I'm always drawn to the earliest is the truest. And I think in nearly all circumstances, that is what should govern us, like the process of later interpolations and things that happen later. So I said, well, I'd like the earliest one. And he said, well, we've got the King James. And I thought, haven't you got one more towards like Jesus' time? You know, and I kind of was aware the King James was a lot later.
Yes.
And then when he found me a Bible, I said, have you got any books about the Christians at the time? And he said, we've got a calendar. I don't know what on earth this was on this calendar. And I thought, that isn't satisfying. So in my journey, my Christian journey, the evidences based on those things that I said, I have the Greek interlineal,
right, good,
which has very clearly marked the 1 John is at 5:7, the comma Yohanan.
Oh yes,
yeah, it's got those, and it's got, you can follow the Greek in there. I have the original Hebrew text, and not only that, I have the early addiction. Well, I'll show you this. I'll let you come in whenever you want to come in.
Yeah, no worries.
There was a pastor in our old church, and he put together this, a dictionary of early Christian beliefs. This is all anti-Nicene.
Okay.
This is before Constantine, because I think there is an argument that at Constantine, all hell could have broken out. So I wanted to understand the Bible in relation to the commentaries of the earliest hearers, because it came from this community.
Right, okay.
So for my exegesis, as I say, I have the Greek interlineal, the Hebrew text, and the commentaries of the early Christians. So that's kind of where I am in my Christian journey. Now you can break that down, come in and say, if you were a Christian and you would apply an exegetical model, tell me what I can improve on what I got.
The first thing I'll say is, Colin, thank you so much. Let's go and have something to eat, and then we'll say goodbye.
Oh, God bless you.
No,
Show me where my exegetical.
Look,
where I do.
you know, from what you have told me, obviously it's an overview, okay? To me, I always look at it this way.
Sure.
The main point that one should start at is the evidence.
Yeah.
You want to assess the evidence. Obviously, in order to assess the evidence, necessarily you are going to have to look at other areas, other people, and what they have possibly said. But primarily you'd go to the root. That, for example, in your case, all these early Christian beliefs would have had their basis in the Bible.
It's funny because simultaneously, along with the commentary, in the ante-Nicene works, you can reconstruct the entire Gospels from their conversations, excluding 11 verses. So up until the final canon of the Bible, the whole of the New Testament was actually interspersed amongst the community. So this is why I'm drawn to the fact that you can't separate the two, because the New Testaments are the books of the church for reading in the church.
Right.
That's kind of where I am at the moment.
Just a very quick sort of analysis on what you said. So which one would verify which?
The church.
No, in relation to these beliefs, the ante-Nicene ones and the thereafter, as you said, most of it except 11 verses, approximately, agree.
Yes.
Which one would confirm which one?
Well, I suppose what I said in the beginning about Jesus' message and then his companions hearing it, they proclaimed it orally. It wasn't in a written form to begin with.
True.
So within that community of the first 200 years, well, in fact, I would say within the community prior to the final canonization, the Christian church, the Bible came out of the church. So though only the church has the authority to interpret its own scriptures. A bit like the Hadith.
Right, but that would be assuming that they had some written form.
Sorry, can you elaborate on that? I'm trying to.
Do you know when you said that? Sorry, brother, can you? Sorry, it's okay. The church fathers had the authority, as you said, which is fine. But they would have had a basis. Are you saying that their authority was based on all the oral transmissions, or was there some written form on which they could rely?
So what you'll find in the canon of the final canonization of the New Testament, the books.
What period would that be?
Well, it started around 340 and ended around 400, I think. So what you have is there is a continuity of the Gospels that we find in the current New Testament that were accepted right from the earliest time. So in answer to what you just said, they were never disputed. The books that were never disputed were constant in fragmentary manuscript form. They wouldn't have been, say, in the Church of Corinth, wouldn't have had the letter to the Romans. It wasn't a compendium as such.
Yes, of course not.
So I believe that the most revered, most accepted and most authentic manuscripts were actually floating around the community of Christians from the earliest time, which later found their way into the final canon, because they were consistent right the way through.
Right. So I would assume from what you have said, there wasn't anything in written form, but enough of the followers had enough of the information. Am I going the right line?
I think what I'd say is there were manuscripts of the New Testament that we have in the final canon that were in circulation from the earliest time. But what I'm saying is that didn't come prior to it being preached orally. I'm not exactly sure of when one became
the other.
Constant.
Understood. Now, if that be the case, then on what basis can we, from the perspective that you used, on what basis can we be sure that the early Christian beliefs were what they were?
Okay, I'm going to
because my mind is trying to work out, if you don't have a basis,
Yes.
then how did you formulate beliefs?
Maybe I'm missing something there. The basis would have been in the undisputed books of the New Testament,
Excellent.
always considered. That would have been the basis. But for them to have become manuscript, they had to exist orally first.
Yeah, definitely.
So the oral traditions of the church, which is basically the understanding of what was written and how to interpret it,
Yes.
was actually in existence before they were written down. It had to be.
Right, now,
sorry
to interject.
Yeah, no,
right,
you're fine.
excellent. But the issue that arises in my mind, Colin, is that, okay, we cannot for definite say X book was in the mind of Y. We can't say that. At best, we can say there were 5 people, potentially, yes, who had 20% of one of the
Of
books,
what we call the New Testament.
or what we would call one book.
Okay,
The
yeah.
New Testament starts from Matthew to Revelation.
Sure.
But if we were to say one particular book, 5 people had information of that.
Okay, incomplete information
Yes,
from the whole
of
thing.
course.
Yes,
And then it was all brought together.
For sure.
The question then therefore arises is that how do we identify who those individuals were, and on what basis do we establish the veracity of what they said?
Okay, that was a question I had to ask myself, and
Good.
it really boils down to is there a true church and are there false churches? My response to that to myself was, I believe that there was such a thing called the church, the Christian church. It was a unity and an institution. It was something that Jesus brought together. And the followers of and the companions of Jesus were the foundation, the apostles.
Yes.
Okay. Now, within that community, there was a unity. There was only one group of Christians. There were various sects, the Ebionites and Nestorians. They came later.
Yes.
But in their writings, they don't actually have a compendium of historical accounts, etc., or even reference to a community that was active.
Yes.
So you'll find that the early Christians, they had congregations in Rome, Corinth, all over the place, Antioch, etc., etc. But they were part of the one unity, which was they called it the body of Christ, the church. Now, the confirmation of why I believe these books is because they were held to be the sacred books of that community, as is historically evidenced in the writings that come from within that.
Okay.
All of the people that are referenced in here were part of the same church.
Okay.
Because there was only one church at the time. It was called the Undivided Church.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be why I'm comfortable to accept them, because if I don't, I need somebody else to fill that black hole with me, and I wasn't convinced the Gnostic Gospels would do it for me, or the letter of Barnabas was not meaty enough or have any historical backing.
Right,
So
okay.
that's why I'm still there.
That's fine, I can understand. However, the central issue that we were trying to clarify...
So this gentleman's in front of your camera, I don't know if that's... does it... This one, is this your camera?
Yes.
Sorry,
brother, if you can... I understand. Come this side. Come this side if you want to listen.
I'll watch your back.
You can... yeah, not a problem at all. Hi, how are you? You okay? Yeah? The central issue that we were trying to consider or clarify is this. You see, as an example, Jesus, that we consider to be Jesus, peace be upon him, he promulgated a message. That message was heard by people who followed him. Those people that followed him after he had left the earth were teaching other people. Whatever they were teaching was either written down or the very people who were teaching were writing it down.
That's important that I understand what that last part. It was either written down.
Either written down by the people who were hearing what the followers were saying, or the followers themselves had written it down.
Okay.
Are you following?
Outside of hearing it directly themselves.
Once they'd heard it directly, so for example, there are 4 of us here, you have said something, us 4 have heard it, and we have gone to tell the other 4 what we heard from you.
For sure.
Those other 4 either wrote it down and promulgated it, or we ourselves had written it down and were still teaching it.
I understand.
So now if we take through the period, as you know, and rightfully so, it was an oral tradition. When it transferred to the written form, Was it 1? Was it 2? Was it 3? Was it 5? How do we verify what was actually said orally
Yes,
was transmitted faithfully in the written form?
for sure.
Now, in order for us to even assess and establish whether that be the case, we would necessarily want to know who the primary authors may have been.
Okay, yes.
Who would they, if we were to look at the early Christian beliefs, on what basis can I confidently determine
Yeah.
that what has been passed on to us
Yeah.
is accurate?
Sure.
Not changed.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
is accurate,
Yes.
and on what basis
Good point.
the books were formulated.
That's a really foundational
Yeah,
point. And
exactly,
It's
yeah.
it's one, because I like building on foundations. If
Absolutely,
you get the
you're
foundation
right,
wrong,
Colin.
the building's not in the right place.
I agree with you. Start at the bottom
Yeah,
and then go upward.
exactly. Yeah, this is why sometimes when it's a case of I'll tell you a Quran verse, you tell me a Bible verse, and I'll tell you what it means. And once we've squashed that, I'll give you another one and another one
And we'll
another
just
one. Exactly.
ad infinitum.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose for me, it's something that still convinces me is this: that the New Testament was not recorded in written form for anything but being read in the church. There wasn't a period in the early church history where there were scraps given to individuals to make up their own mind.
Right. Can I just
Please do. You
side?
dive in whenever you
Sorry,
want,
Colin.
please. No,
Just a side issue. When you say they were teaching in the churches, are you meaning they were teaching in the synagogues, or were new buildings actually brought up specifically for the Christians?
Well, I'll rephrase that, be a bit more accurate.
Yeah.
They were being read in the early Christian congregations, wherever they met. It would have been outside of the temple.
Right.
But there were early Christian congregations, as we can see in history, with persecution of the Christians by the Romans.
Yes.
They were spread all over the place.
Yeah.
And they would have had some of the early Bible manuscripts, the New Testament manuscripts, but essentially they would have been fed by the oral tradition,
Yes.
which is this, which goes
Yes.
right back to about AD 80, AD 90.
Yes.
So we're talking about within earshot of John. I mean, John is like the link to these people, the
Yes.
last apostle.
Okay.
So in answer to your question there, because the New Testament doesn't claim to be the dictated word of God, unlike the Quran, the New Testament claims to be the evidence, the biographies of the witnesses of what happened, the events, etc., of their founder, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And the only reason they were recorded was to be read in the church, not outside of the church. So for confirmation of why I believe their interpretation, I have to go right back to, and I mean, I could give you, I will actually.
Yeah, please do.
I can
Please do.
again. This isn't to
Bottle
score
of water,
points.
my bottle.
But
So sorry, would you like some water, Colin?
I
A bottle
will,
of
thank you
water.
very much.
Have you got the bottles in there? Have you got one? Just check in there, Baijan. Yeah. There you are. It's iced. This is just the empty. I put it in.
Empty bottle.
No, yeah, mine. Is there? It's there. Who's nicked it? Someone's nicked it. Chala gaya? There. Aha, jazakallah.
can I just say that? God bless you.
Oh, you are most
Says
welcome.
something in the
You are
Bible. Anyone who gives
most
one of
welcome,
the
brother.
least of these a drink in my name, you won't lose your reward for that. Thank you.
It is. It's. We have to bring it 5 hours, so we have to make sure that by the time it gets here,
Is it your wife that puts this together?
No, his dear wife.
I knew it wouldn't be a man.
We've got more things to think about.
Thought you'd have a barbecue and a tent and everything.
Hey, you know what? We've actually considered that in the summer months
Have you
to
really?
bring along one. But then we asked them, and they said, "No,
They
you're
said,
not
"No,
allowed."
no,
Yeah.
that's a shame.
So we said, "Oh well,
'Cause I think-
can't do it."
Because what I'm experiencing here with you, I'm enjoying in a human sense.
Yes.
But I also know that we're establishing an exploration. We're like two
Absolutely.
archaeologists.
Yes.
We're approaching this
Yeah.
foundation. We're saying, what can we?
Yes,
you know,
what can we address? Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Sure.
yeah. In answer to that last point, to just find some evidence.
Yeah.
See, we have the early church fathers on the Catholic Church. The church was known as the Catholic Church. It had a name.
Right.
And it called itself the Catholic Church. It wasn't called the Catholic Church by people outside of the Catholic Church.
Uh-huh.
And it was called the Catholic Church because at the time there were lots of Gnostic heresies. the Nicolaitans, the Ebionites,
Yes.
the Nestorians, and they were probably later ones, but
Yeah.
from very early on in the church there were sects of heretical sects. So the church called itself the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And the canon that we have in the New Testament is the Catholic canon.
Yes.
Because it's discerned through the canonization process
Yes.
within the councils of the church. So the reason why I accept the church's presentation of the truth as far as the scriptures is concerned, where they come from and the reason they were there, is because they were the ones that Jesus established as his followers. And so I'm going right back to Ignatius. You can go right back
Yeah.
to Ignatius, very, very early
Yeah.
writing. And he said, we have one Saviour and he established one church. He also promised to guard it against error. And I'll just go right to the end.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
early
sure.
church was the Catholic Church, taught and practiced in the same manner. Because this is it, what he says. See that ye follow the bishop, even as Christ does the Father. The presbytery as he would the apostles. Reverence the deacons. So you can see there's a hierarchical institution.
Yes.
This wasn't just lone preachers giving their own
Yeah.
interpretation on scripture.
Yes.
The salient point is wherever the bishop shall appear, let there be the multitude of people. Also, even as wherever Jesus Christ is, there is the Catholic Church. And from this period,
Yeah.
the suggestion it was called that before Ignatius. However, the earliest we've got is AD 110.
Right, yeah.
And continuous through Polycarp, Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, the Muratorian
Yes.
canon, Tertullian, right
Yes.
the way through. The evidence I'm giving you is the Catholic evidence.
Yes, I understand. I understand.
Pre-Nicene, I have to...
Yeah, yeah, of
establish
course,
that.
of
So
course.
yeah, in answer to your question,
Yeah.
why do I... Probably I've waffled on too much. I've
No,
taken
no,
a
not
bit
at
too
all,
much.
not at all. That is how we clarify
as far as I authenticate the scriptures I've got there, is because they come historically from the best evidence to represent the Christian church, because I believe there were Christians.
Yeah.
And if I was to be truthful to myself, if I was to say, well, you know what? Let's say I'm not convinced with what I've told you.
Yeah.
I'd have to put everything away,
Yes.
and then I'd have to say, but there was a Christian church.
Yeah.
There were
I see,
Christians.
yes.
There were Christians who were thrown to the lions. They were part of some group.
Yeah.
If I reject these, there has to be something that comes in
Yes.
that is better than what I'm offering you.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
that's my dilemma.
Yeah.
If that is,
I
a
can see
dilemma.
I can see exactly what you mean. You see, and rightfully so, if you think about it on a reasonable level,
Yeah.
something did happen.
Yeah.
What we are trying to do is establish exactly what happened.
Sure.
Because, and the slight distinction I would respectfully take on
Please
what
do.
you
You
said
say whatever you want.
is that for me to determine
Yeah.
the veracity of a saying or a statement
Yeah.
would be vitally important if it meant that that particular statement
Yeah.
is my reliance on my connection with whatever that message had brought.
Okay, yeah.
In our case, it is the connection between the creator and the creation.
And that's ultimately the foundation
That's
of all
the
foundations.
absolutely.
The one God.
Yeah, that's where we come.
Yes.
Now, I would want to also know that if, from my limited understanding,
Yeah.
there is the potential for what we would call a negative force, yeah, interfering, okay, in our lives to divert us away from the essential message
Yes.
that came on from high,
Yeah.
then it makes it all the more important that whatever I'm going to consider to be evidence
Yeah.
for what Jesus Christ taught, yeah, that evidence ought to be considered, and when investigated,
Yeah.
should be completely reliable.
Okay.
But the issue there, as I said, the slight
Yeah.
divergence is this. Divergence is this. If I look at what you said to me,
Yeah.
for example, Ignatius, and you have got approximate dates here,
Yeah.
These verses that have been
Yeah.
put in,
Yeah.
my first question as you were reading out was, okay, Colin is right, this is what may have been written.
Yeah.
But when he wrote it,
Yeah.
had he included these verses, or was this an afterthought?
You know, I'm going to have to. I really want to understand accurately what you're saying.
No problem, okay.
So we
So-
have something that pertains to be Ignatius, and it's
Yeah.
been given a date of 110.
Yes.
Your question would be, how do we know Can you
right,
expand
no.
on that?
What I'm saying is, when Ignatius wrote this,
Yes.
was he referring to these particular statements?
Was he referring
Yes.
to these particular statements?
Or is this an afterthought to make you understand what he's saying
Sorry,
here?
yeah, this portion here that I start to read out actually isn't one. I thought that was
Right.
afterwards. So they actually
Okay.
start here.
Okay.
But from
This
what I
is-
understand...
I'm looking at this and
yeah,
thinking,
I know,
wait a
I
minute,
did. I
as
know
it
I've
is
gone the
going
wrong way
here,
round.
is it
Yeah,
the other
yeah,
way?
no,
Right.
it's the other way
Okay.
round.
So let's go to here, and
Yeah.
rightfully so.
For sure.
You see, here it makes sense because there isn't any reference to any written form or even oral form. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
albeit at 110, you probably would have had
some form
some
of writing.
early manuscripts
Guaranteed.
of the Gospel.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Now, you see, the issue arises here. You know, when
Yeah.
I said the slight divergence.
Sure.
If I were to say to somebody, okay, what is the New Testament?
Yeah.
I would say it's from Matthew to Revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
the books in between.
For sure.
The Catholic Church holds them in high esteem, but you know and I know
Yeah.
that the Catholic Church has got a Catholic canon,
Yes.
which is
The New
somewhat
Testament.
different
Yeah.
from what we would call the Protestant one.
Not regarding the New Testament. There are. This is funny enough.
Yeah.
The guy over there, who I have a lot of respect for. I forget what his name is. You probably know his name. But
Osman.
yeah. He would say, well, what Bible do you believe in? Do you believe in the 66 book, or do you believe in
Yeah.
whatever? But
73.
But Catholics, and I don't mean
Yeah.
Roman Catholic.
I understand.
Have to be.
Yeah, that's
See,
fine.
They understood the canon to contain canonical books, but there were deuterocanonical
Yes.
and proto-canonical.
Yeah.
The extra books of the Apocrypha are deuterocanonical,
Yeah.
and the Jews at the time actually used those same books, which the Catholics still hold in their
Okay.
Bible. But as far as the 27-book
Yes.
New Testament, which is the canon of the New Testament
Yes,
believers,
yes.
there never has been any dispute amongst
True.
any groups,
Yeah.
any splits,
Yeah.
that is one that was consistent right the way through.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
no,
if
no,
that answers
I have no issue with that. The issue that I was wanting us to discuss
Yeah.
is the fact that if we have a canonized form later on
Yeah.
which significantly differed, yeah,
Yeah.
at its foundational point, as we are referring to,
Yes.
somewhere a group of people agreed and disagreed as to what should constitute the canon.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You are aware of the various councils that were sat.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What I am asking is, if we were to go one step before that, yeah, for example, when it was decided that the first book of the New Testament should be attributed to Matthew,
Yes.
on what basis was it established that it should be attributed to Matthew?
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point. So in my
Excellent.
exegesis,
Yeah.
I would want to examine the case for Matthew as regards the church and,
Yes.
and whether he's a reliable. So I go to the earliest traditions
Yeah.
within the church. See,
Yes.
no disrespect to the Protestant brothers and sisters who would be discussing the Bible and its accuracy on the basis that it was the dictated word of God equivalent to the Qur'an, which isn't something that I'm
I understand,
in that case
yes.
for. So Matthew is one of the names of the disciples, yeah?
Right?
And the date of Matthew, the earliest date of the Matthew manuscripts would they be before John, and the earliest John manuscript is, what is it, 90 to 120?
Yes.
Okay, and if Matthew was the earliest, we can put Matthew
Around 35.
around 70 something
Yes,
like that.
exactly.
Okay, so 70 is only how many years after Jesus' death? We're looking at 40 years
Yes,
after
about
Jesus'
35,
death.
40. Yeah.
Okay, and there's a possibility that manuscripts could have been around even earlier. However, the message of Matthew, right, is one that, as far as I know, has never been disputed within the church
Yes.
unity, collective.
Yes.
So let's just see if we can find just something about Matthew here that might shine some light on it. Right, we go to Matthew. And again, this is within the continuity of the institution called the Catholic Church,
Yes.
from which the New Testament scriptures,
Yeah, I
the canon
understand,
New
I
Testament
understand.
scriptures. So Matthew, let's have a little look. So we can go to Tertullian, okay,
Yeah.
and he says there is first of all Matthew, that most faithful chronicler of the gospel, since he was a companion of the Lord, for no other reason except to show us clearly the fleshly lineage of Christ. Matthew begins his gospel in this manner, the book of the generations. So, and there we've got some more. Who else have we got? Irenaeus. No, actually, we'll go to Eusebius, which is 120, Papias 120. Yes. Matthew put together the oracles in the Hebrew language, and each one interpreted them the best he could. Irenaeus, Matthew also issued a written gospel among the Hebrews. So we can see Matthew is being authenticated as an acceptable book within the earliest community from which that book was read within. So,
wait, can I just ask a question here on what you said? If, for example, I were to take what you said, question is this: when they are talking about it, for me, it seems as though they are talking about something they are aware of, but have not actually had in possession.
Okay, what? As in its complete form, the book of Matthew.
Excuse me.
You please. Hello.
How are you?
Not good.
No?
I tell you.
Okay, we are going to have to sort you out then. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the point you were saying.
The point I'm making is, it seems from here they are talking about something, okay, but it seems like as though they were not in possession of it. Am I?
Well, I suppose you can't definitively extract that. It's a possibility.
Exactly.
So it's not one that to be honest with you, I know how to reply to. It's possible.
I understand.
I think it's very probable they had the oral message of Matthew, which isn't a very long book as far as memorization. It's very easy to, especially in those days when their minds were more tutored. So
that's how
even if they didn't have, in the year, it was from 220, I'm pretty sure they probably would have had at the very least the 4 Gospels. I'm pretty sure by 220, because the Codex Sinaiticus is about 340.
Yes.
And that is obviously it's got Clement and a few other books.
But the date was 125.
For sure.
Not 220.
All right, at 125. The very fact that they're referencing Matthew,
there was something.
That's the most important.
Agreed.
Whether they had it in written form
possession,
or in oral form, I wouldn't be able to determine.
Right. Now, the second logical question that arises in my mind is that, right, now if we were to say that there was, okay, the very word gospel, okay, should have a background basis. What I mean by that is that, okay, everybody understood what was meant when the word gospel was used.
Okay,
In the Old Testament, there is no trace of it.
What, the word gospel?
The word gospel, right, okay. So we need to understand on what basis these particular individuals had stated that there was a set of writings orally transmitted which constituted what we call the gospel. Now, one of the things that I say, if we cross-reference with this, do you have the Gospel of Matthew in here?
You know what's interesting you said that. I only found out a week ago that within because this is just a compendium of some of the bullet points.
Yes, right.
But within and I forget the amount of words or the books within the compendium of the ante-Nicene writings of the church. You can reconstruct the entirety of the Gospels, excluding 11 verses, from within the writings of the early church. So what that proves is, not only did you have pre-canon the circulation of increasing copies of the real Gospels, you also had within the writings and the preachings of the people that were members of this church, simultaneously, the understanding and the Gospels in the whole message of the preaching of the early church, which for me is to keep me where I am. Let's just say this. Tell me what you feel of this.
Yeah, sure.
If I was to, not to you, just to anybody, to say, you know what, there is enough doubt that in my presentation, I'm left with only one option. First of all, we both agree there were Christians. They were Christians. People.
They were followers,
They were followers
of Christ.
Okay.
Yeah.
They were known as Christians.
Yes, we can say that from one perspective. Yeah.
Now, those Christians predated Muhammad by around 600 years.
Yes.
I checked out the extent of the Christian church, the Catholic church. By the time of Muhammad, it went right the way through to Gaul. It was down to the northern tips of Africa.
Yeah.
It was starting to reach in towards Russia,
Uh-huh.
and it was in the east. So this Christian church had sacred books. The books that I follow are those sacred books. If I was to ask you to give me an alternative exposition of the Christians, which we accept were in existence 600 years before Muhammad, then I would have to say to you, if mine aren't the ones, based on the evidence, you have to supply me with some scope of what happened to these Christians who we agree heard Jesus, spread the gospel message, wrote it down. What were their practices, what were their understandings, what their beliefs, because they should be evident within that 600-year framework. So do you see why I need an alternative?
Oh, of course. But you will note that the conversation is based on what has been transmitted.
Sure.
One is not doubting the transmission in totality. What one is considering is what was transmitted and on what basis of reliability. So, for example, you know, when we talked about Matthew, and I said, do you have the Gospel of Matthew in here? Yeah? If we were to do a cross-reference, because we are looking at the evidence, if I were to say, okay, Colin, can you just explain this for me? Because of what you have said, Matthew records Matthew being called. How do you explain that?
Because Matthew was never identified as the actual writer. It would have been a scribe who wrote according to what Matthew said. This would be the same with all of the Gospels, that they would have had a secretary or a scribe. It's very unlikely, considering they were from Nazareth, that they would have been lettered men. So that's why that's called the Gospel according to, as opposed to by, meaning he was the actual author who sat down.
Right, excellent. So now you can confidently also tell me who and the name of the scribe was.
I think for me to do that, it would be the same as me saying to you, okay, I understand the companions. I don't ever want to turn it around.
No, I don't mind. I understand.
But as far as who actually wrote the original Qur'an, the original let's say the Birmingham Qur'an that we had, can you tell me who the man, did he sign it? It would be one of those kind of questions. Because the importance of the person who, what's the word for it, who was the secretary who actually put the things down, is the fact that the people who were around him believed that that's exactly what Matthew had written.
Absolutely. I have no problem with that, Colin. Like I said, now the question then turns on itself. Because if we say, look, if I were to say to you, okay, you know, on that point, who dictated and who wrote it, when the Prophet dictated it, peace be upon him, who wrote it down, and I give you a list of names, I can ask a further question. How do we know that they did it? Can you follow?
And so, I suppose it all goes down to the authority of the church
now,
tells me.
No. I go a further step. You're right. I then say, wait a minute. There is one sure way of deciphering this. I now am at an impasse. The impasse is this.
See if we can bridge over
Absolutely.
that.
The impasse is this. If I am to accept the existence of a supreme creator and that creator has communicated with humanity, then I am going to ask the necessary questions in relation to the creator. How do I view a creator? Should I view a creator like human beings? Should I view the creator like all living creatures? who are prone to many problems in relation to what we remember,
Sure.
what we transmit, etc.,
Yes.
then I am duty bound to consider the internal evidence
Yeah.
of whatever is claimed to be from on high.
Sure.
Now, in relation to the Bible, we know that there is a slight distinction. When the Muslims talk, they talk revelation. When our Christian brethren talk,
Yeah.
they talk inspiration.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
I understand the difference, yes.
The distinction. So I'm saying, wait a minute. You see, the problem I'm finding here is this: that the majority of believers, and I'm going right across the board, yeah, will bypass the very basis and essence of the message and rely on third-party information to justify the position,
I might have a response.
which is
but you finish
great
what you're
stuff.
saying,
Yes,
sure.
because to me
Yes.
it sounds illogical. I'm
Okay.
thinking, wait a minute.
Yeah.
If I have got something
Yes.
which should and ought to stand on its own independently,
Yes.
and on one side I've got a set of writings
Yes.
which I am compelled to rely on
Yes.
to determine this independent. Are you
I
following?
think, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I think my response to that would be, I'm always drawn to, let's say, when people talk in abstract terms,
Yeah,
they're very personal to them and very
Yeah, yeah, of
difficult to
course.
discuss beyond.
Yeah.
Maybe there might be a truth hidden in there that's worth listening to. But I'm always drawn to the historicity of the things that we say to each other,
Yeah.
and going back in time to determine the continuity from what I'm telling you today in
yes,
this
yes,
park
understood.
to where the wellspring of that came
Yes.
from. So I need to see the continuity of the belief I'm trying to explain to you that I believe in.
Yeah.
And I suppose I have to put my hands up and say, what I believe is immaterial.
Yes.
What I personally believe is as much as I could go to McDonald's and ask them what they believe.
Yeah,
If I find the mouthpiece, the sacred inspiration,
yeah.
then if I can find that, then I will believe what it tells me based on the evidence for it to present itself to me as that
Yeah.
source-worthy belief.
Yes.
So if we go back to what I constructed in the begining to my
Yes,
daughter,
yes, yes.
which is, we all agree there was Jesus. They all believe that he had a message. We all believe that he had followers.
Yeah.
Now, I would go further. I would say at the very least those followers were acknowledged as Christians. Now, at the time, as far as having any historical backing, the only Christians that were worth acknowledging as true representatives of Christians were the Catholic Church,
Okay.
which we see already as
Understood.
evidenced by as early as 110
Yeah.
and continuous through there through Irenaeus, etc.
Yes.
etc. So we have an institution that we can identify as being the representative
Yeah.
of the oral traditions and very soon after the beginning of the written traditions.
Right, okay.
So for me, if I've discovered that, I then need another source, and I need in a way, these are the hadiths. These are the companions of the companions.
I see what you mean.
Okay, and if they agree with each other, see, for me, I had to put an extra fail-safe in my exegesis.
Yes.
Meaning, I don't want to see one not verse, because they're not verses, one quote from an early church father to build a doctrine that I'm required to believe.
Yeah.
So what I did, I restricted, first of all, to ante-Nicene, before the Council of Nicaea.
Yeah.
Lots of people go way beyond that. They'll bring Augustine
Yes,
in and
yes.
right the way through.
Yeah.
Because I felt that as far as the truest witnesses to the events at the time, the earliest are likely to be the ones.
Yes.
And so I'm restricting my theological kind of adherence to those things that they taught in uniformity on.
Yeah.
And that would be the New Testament writings.
Right. Okay.
Certain theological practices, and also I don't know. You probably don't have it in Islam, but the Jews had. Have you heard of the laying on of hands?
Yeah.
Laying on of hands.
Yes.
I mean, Moses. You'll see it in Deuteronomy, where Moses lays his hand on Joshua,
Yes.
and Joshua then has the authority.
Yes.
And within the Pharisee sect, which are
Yes.
the ones who basically rebuild our foundation and not
Yes.
the Sadducees, you'll see they had something called the Sanhedrin. they had an organisation with a prime minister, if you like, which would be the high priest.
Yes.
And the early church was no different. They didn't reinvent the whole thing.
Yes.
So you had, as a Catholic, I would say that there was a seat. The seat of Moses became the papacy.
Yes.
Now we can go on and say, but you can't. And I say, I'm restricting it to I don't want to go off on a tangent.
Yes.
And how the authority was through episcopal ordination, which was the laying on of hands.
Yes.
So with my search, a bit like you had, I hope I've actually brought them here. I hope I have. See here what we have. See, from Peter,
yes.
we've got the date. We're then going through to Linus, which you actually find in 2 Timothy. Anacletus, Clement is in Philippians.
Yes.
So what we have the, when I say the prime ministry, it's difficult to say the first amongst equals. No one had determined that he was the infallible, etc. But my church has safeguarded the names and the dates of all of these, and they operate with ordination, episcopal ordination, which was finalised with the laying on of hands, the same as they did in the Old Testament. So I'm happy to not only see a continuity with the church fathers, but the same organisations and the structures that they had in the Old Testament. The church didn't have to reinvent the wheel. And could I ask you again? This is my dilemma. Is this? I might not be able to convince you without a shadow of a doubt to believe what I'm saying to you. However, I'm convinced what I'm saying to you is the most reliable exposition of the Christian church for the first 600 years. If we both agree there was such an institution as the Christian church, and I hopefully I've proved to you it was called the Catholic Church, then if what I consider to be the most reliable representative of that, if you don't agree with this, we're left with a dilemma. Because I think I'm right in saying that Jews, Christians and Muslims accept that there were people of all those books. And you're the people of the Qur'an, and I would be one of the people. Then we call them Christians.
Understood.
So, could you fill in from an Islamic perspective? Because I know that you're required as an article of faith to believe in the Christian books. We won't determine what they are as yet. That's another whole conversation. We won't determine. But in principle, you are required
what was revealed,
to believe in the Christian books.
No, we are. I'll just clarify something. Number one, the word belief, I will always establish after having assessed the evidence. Have you just knocked me?
No.
That's assault.
Don't get violence breaks up in the park. Oh no!
Oh no! Here we go again.
I'll go like this to me, and I'll fall back.
So the word belief, after the evidence has been established. However, the Muslim view is clear that revelation came to Moses, peace be upon him. Revelation came to Christ, and they were followers of Christ also. Agreed, no problem. However, the dilemma can actually be resolved. At least from my perspective. If I were to say to you, right, okay, you know what? I have come to an impasse, the one that I discussed with you. And the impasse is this. I have got on the one side all what we would consider to be historical evidence, which can be passed as reliable.
Can I just add this?
Sure.
I hope, for me, I relax a lot more when I'm trying to wrap it up in a thing. I've hopefully presented my exegetical model. Okay. Now I need to hear your exegetical model to fill in the gaps of the books of the Christians.
That's what I'm doing.
Really interested.
That's what I'm doing.
Sorry.
Not a problem. You see, I am looking at it and I'm saying, wait a minute. From the perspective that is being seen here, you have got what you consider to be evidence pre-Nicene, which when put together gives you pretty much the whole of the New Testament, barring 11 verses. Okay? So, on that basis...
You make it sound pretty good. Sorry, I thought you were convincing me.
So, on that basis, one should be able to consider that information to be reliable. Not an issue.
Most reliable, I think I'd just put in.
Let's put most reliable. The impasse and the dilemma I touched on it, and I would say this. I said, wait a minute. Here is how I would want to view something. If the Creator has conferred a message on these prophets, those prophets have taught it. In this case, we'll restrict it to Jesus Christ. Yeah. He messages came to him.
Yes.
Yeah. Here is the first question. When he was being given revelation, or you can call it inspiration, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. When he was being given that and he was transmitting it, was that the gospel?
Was that the gospel?
Yes.
Well, this is, I suppose, a far deeper widening of the examination, because when I said that initial thing about we believe in Jesus and
Yes.
had a message, I wanted to restrict that because I would say had a mission as well.
Right,
And that
let's
opens
restrict
things
it to that.
Yeah, I would like
Okay.
to restrict
it
at
to
the
that
moment
then.
just to
No
the
problem. No
message.
problem.
Yeah, sure thing.
So I will bypass that. However, I would then go to all the information that has been collated in there,
Sure.
and I would ask this question. Whatever has been recorded,
Yes.
is that what we would consider the veritable, inspired, revealed Word of God?
Yes.
On what basis?